everyone. Welcome to Sunday Live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbale in Abuja. It was an eventful weekend, politically speaking, with the major political parties conducting party congresses in several states of the Federation. The People's Democratic Party had state congresses in about 7 states, some of which went without any drama, but others came with controversies. The states are Oyo, Kwara, Lagos, Adamawa, Borno, Kebbi, and Ebonyi State. It is necessary for the party to have conducted these elections to ensure a proper constitution of the party structure in these states before the national convention slated for the end of this month. Some of the states that had the congresses are those that have legal issues or where the state structures have been dissolved or had internal crises amongst members, cases of expiration of existing structures. The People's Democratic Party will be changing the guard of its national leadership amidst a series of internal wranglings and the contestation of who will fly the flag of the party for the 2023 presidential election. Tonight, we speak with the former Minister of Aviation and the chieftain of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Osita Chidoka. He joins us here in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure having you tonight.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin with the primaries of your party in some states. For example, they had a faction or a parallel congress yesterday, and one will wonder, when will party internal crisis end? I mean, your party is looking forward to a national convention at the end of this month, but we're seeing this kind of situation happening. People are still not happy.
Well, party internal crisis will never end, but the nature of the crisis will end. As more electoral reforms are carried out, not just in the country, but also in the political parties, as more and more people in political office realize the need to understand that the parties themselves are a product of democracy and that internal democracy is key to the party, those crises will begin to calm down. But for the most part, what you will see is that different groups will emerge in the parties. There will always be contestation for position. Candidates or potential candidates will always try to form cliques that will make sure they have an advantage. So there will always be contestation. The only part is to be resolved by a fair and transparent process. So when you lose, you know you've lost.
Why has cohesion eluded your party since 2015? The center has not held.
It's the metamorphosis of PDP. It is the evolution. PDP as a party, I've said in many fora, came to be in 1998, and by 1999 had formed the national government. It had no experience of any movement. It had no time outside of government. From the time it was formed, it went into government. So there was always a president, a central figure who wields the party together. The party had never been with distributed power authorities. So what has happened in 2015 is with the absence of the president, then there became the challenges of lack of that central figure. So in most political parties, after a while, the president, becomes the leader of the party and runs the party. But if you notice, parties that have tradition, that have history, tend to have institutions that made it possible for ANC to say, we don't want Thabo Mbeki again. And they voted a populist leader called Zuma. And when President Zuma wanted to put his wife, the same people came together and said, hell no, you're not going to have this. We want Cyril Ramaphosa. So PDP doesn't have that experience. So that is what is happening now. This internal crisis will lead to strengthening of institutions, will lead to the realization of the nature of the distributed powers, and then also see whether we can make progress in ensuring internal democracy.
So the party
is
not really used to being out of power.
No, yes.
And so the shock is still there.
Yes, it's not in his DNA.
Yeah, so,
yes.
And because I'd like to ask you, you've been a former minister. Yes. Right now, who is the leader of your party aside the elective offices of the party's national structure?
So nobody has emerged in the process of what I call a charismatic leader coming up to become the fulcrum of the party. That is difficult because what you have is an association of governors who are equals. So they really will not defer to one or the other. Some may have more influence than the other. Some governors may not be interested in the national politics. But for the most part, a charismatic leader needs to emerge in this process. But beyond having a charismatic leader, the institutions of PDP needs to be strengthened. And that strengthening of institutions will require that the party internal processes, internal primaries, election of officers will be open, free, and fair. That will ensure that the party offices will now kowtow to anybody, even in and out of office.
Well,
so that evolution is what is
one would think that
now.
former President Goodluck Jonathan is at least the latest president out of the PDP. So
Yes.
one would think that naturally he should wear the toga of the party's leader, that people should defer to him, people should make reference to him and consult him for as much as when you have difficult moments in the party, as someone who has a conscience of the party to help the party through tough times. Why has this not been happening?
So if he didn't lose the election and he handed over to another person, we've done that with Obasanjo. The moment President Obasanjo left office, we even got him out as BOT chairman. Efforts to make him BOT chairman was truncated because certain other forces emerged in the party. So President Jonathan, having lost an election, I don't think he, at that time, 2015, 2016 time frame, was in the mind space to begin to play that role. And more, something that happens frequently is that you tend to see the new kids on the block. So I think he decided to allow the younger elements who are now governors and co. And something I need to let people understand is that it's interesting, but there is no PDP governor today who had been a PDP governor at the time PDP was in power. Mm-hmm. They've never seen PDP in office as governors. Mm-hmm. All of them were governors with PDP out of office. So I don't know if they realize what it means for PDP to be at power in the national, because you may see that some of the struggles may just be to control their own fiefdom. So there is need for larger national institutions, for that institution that will be able to weld these forces together towards achieving a desired goal.
So let me ask you, the national convention of the party coming up end of this month, it does look like the party is looking forward to it as a measure that will end its problems. But will the party's problem end after that convention?
Well, it depends. It depends on who emerges in the National Working Committee, and it depends on how far they are able to bring these forces together. PDP is in dire need of a lot of reforms. PDP needs to...
What kind of reforms?
Yeah, PDP needs to expand its base. Its funding structure is still weak. I don't think members are still paying their membership dues. Elected officers are not remitting their own part of their funds to the party. The party does not have a large pool of investments to draw from. Most political parties around the world always end up having large portfolios of investment that helps them to defray the cost of administering the party. So they don't depend on any governor or individual to run the party. So the party doesn't have that. The national headquarters was supposed to be built and offices leased out, and the rental income and other investments to help PDP have some funding to keep itself going. Now, the second part is that as the party begins to raise funds and become independent, then they are able to control its elected officers. So, but the challenge now is that individuals are raising the funds for their own election. Individuals are funding the party in an ad hoc manner that the party itself does not have a funding mechanism of its own to be able to stay together. The other part is that the party's membership structure and the party leadership structure across the line down to the states need to be tweaked. We're still caught in the PDP ward structures, ward and local government structures. But the truth of the matter is that Nigeria has gone beyond that. INEC has moved faster than the parties. PDP now has to have polling unit structures, not ward structure. Because you may come to a ward and you have 65 polling units. So you need to go down to the polling units because INEC is now transmitting results electronically from the polling units. So PDP structure needs to not be the 4 structure, ward, local government, state, national. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to change to a 5 structure party, meaning that the polling units will now be the fulcrum of the party, not the wards. The units, because this is where the work is done. This is where elections are won. This is where we mobilize people to come out. So the 120,000 polling units, which is going to about 140,000 now by INEC's new poll units, need to have PDP structures in those poll units. This is what we'll be offering candidates when they emerge as PDP candidates. So
I will show you, because the Northern, since the party zoned the national chairmanship, swapped the zoning arrangements in the party, and zoned the national chairmanship to the north, the northern leaders in the party came together and had a consensus candidate in the person of a former Senate President, Senator Yocha Ayu, which I will show our viewers the profile of the man. But before I get into that, Uche Secondus and the issues around how he's being sidelined through the court, and the history of the party vis-a-vis court cases. What are your fears about? Because then, there are stories about whether or not he's under pressure to withdraw the court case, and he's come out this evening to say, I am not under any pressure to withdraw the court case. Should he not? Should he refuse to withdraw the court cases or the court case? What are your biggest fears? Well,
Uche Secondus has been the chairman of PDP and has as one of his major legacies he has put together a system of election, of primaries, that has become the envy of everybody. I mean, the last time PDP had conventions that looked like the Port Harcourt Convention was some time ago. So he had invested in the party. He had done, he's been a member of the party from state chairman all the way to national organizing secretary, deputy national chairman, and chairman of the party. I do not think that anything in his instincts, in his behavior, in his attitude will go to undermining PDP as a party. What I think failed was once a governor and a chairman goes into battle in PDP, the governor always tends to have the upper hand. But I think it should have been managed better. And managing it better will require that a lot more consensus building, a lot more negotiation should have happened despite the court cases. And I want to believe that that process is on now, that a few people have come together to ensure that the Uche Secondus-led National Working Committee does not perceive themselves as being stampeded or disgraced out of office, and they too understand that the party needs to move on.
In the real sense, in the practical terms, were they actually given a soft landing? Because that is what a lot of people thought, that Uche Secondus perhaps was given a soft landing. But in the real sense of it, was that a soft landing or some kind of
I don't think the issue is whether he's given a soft landing or
disgrace
otherwise.
Out of office.
No, I don't think that's the issue for us now. What is an issue for us now is how, for a party he has given his whole adult life to, since the last 21 years he's been involved in the party. So how he continues to engage with that party post-office, because he came into the party via an electoral process. And now that process in itself was built on consensus to bring him to office. How now that he's going, how he manages it to exit is also going to be a mark of his own statesmanship and a mark of his own character as a leader. So I'm thinking that what is most important is that there should be no triumphalism. There should be no feeling by any side that we're winning a situation.
But if he's not the one that is conducting the national convention, how would that not happen? Because it's looking like he might not be the one to conduct the national convention.
It is not about him, but the NWC that he leads is still conducting the national convention.
But he's going to be at
deputy chairman is conducting it. Because of legal issues coming from his home state.
I understand, but I'm saying psychologically and politically, you know what it means. When a national chairman sits at the Eagle Square on that kind of day and spearhead the affairs of the party at that, I mean, the whole world will be watching.
Yeah, but it's happened to the former chairman, Okwinwodo. He was in Eagle Square when he was served a court judgment that, he has been removed by a court in his state. And he left Eagle Square. And the convention went ahead. Convention that nominated President Jonathan. The chairman had to leave. And Haliru came in as acting chairman and then subsequently became acting chairman of the party.
So your party is not new to this kind of situation?
It's not new. This situation is not new.
Let's for a moment, because there are a few things that we need to discuss. Let's move to, I wanted our viewers to see the profile of Senator Yocha Ayu, and I'd like to get your view on the kind of dispensation your party will have and what Nigerians should expect. Take a look at what the man that likely, most likely, is looking more like 90%. That is the chairman of the national chairman of the PDP. If everything, all things being equal and nothing changes, this is likely to be the next chairman of the PDP. Look at him, a former Senate president, Senator Yocha Ayu, later became, several times was minister for education under the military government of Sani Abacha, was the later minister of industry. He went on to take up several other roles nationally, Minister of Internal Affairs, Minister of Environment. He was the head of Atiku Abubakar presidential campaign when Atiku ran at the, under the AC at the time. So this is the profile of the man that will be handling the affairs of the party. Are you happy with this kind of choice?
Yes, that's a very good profile. He comes with a very good profile. And that profile is a measure of the vast pool of talent that is in PDP. So if you look at PDP across the country, in any region, in any zone, you're likely going to see quality people coming out to participate in PDP's leadership, both at the national level and at the state level. So it speaks to the quality of the manpower that is available to PDP. What the challenge is that PDP's current transformation is to transform to a almost a digital party, because the digital natives have come of age. Those born in 1999 are already 22 years now. By 2023, they will be 22, 23 years. So if you look at those born in 1990, people that have never lived under a military government, people that were not in primary school when the military were in office, they are the bulk of Nigeria's voting population. So what we need to do today, as we bring the established experience of politicians, we must begin also to think about how to connect with the younger demographics, the people that are actually going to vote. The people that voted for PDP in 1999, majority of them are gone and out of circulation. They are in their 60s now, 70s, and many of them constitute only about 5% of the registered voters. So if you're above 60, so the bulk of the people, 51% of our voters in Nigeria are students. So what we need to also be thinking about is that transformation I talk about, that reform. And now, going by Yochayu's antecedents, his academic pedigree, he will be able to connect to that conversation about making that transition.
Well, we have a lot of work to do.
A whole lot of work,
which
to be very challenging.
Part of which is how your party will be able to defeat the APC. Because that's one major agenda your party has, that you want to return to power. You've tried it twice. 2015 failed. 2019 failed. I mean, you want to try it again. But let's look at some of those names have been mentioned in the race, in the People's Democratic Party. Take a look at some of the names that we've heard, that you have heard, either by rumor or by some kind of conversation that you have. These are the early permutations and potential candidates. Atiku Abubakar, Aminu Tambuwal, Bukola Saraki, Peter Obi, Balham Mohammed, Goodluck Jonathan. These are the possibilities. With these sort of persons in your party, I've had a guest on the program who said to me, Sheil, the only person that can give APC a run for their money on that list is Atiku Abubakar. And he said to me that, look, we've defeated him before, and they're likely to defeat him again if he becomes the candidate of the PDP. What's your thought?
So the person that said this is an APC?
He's an APC member.
I don't expect him to say anything different. But that's a stellar team. If you look at the people in that team of the early permutations, that's a very stellar team. One of the great things that I know about politics is that there's also the wild cards. There's also the dark horses, because both APC and PDP must present new candidates in 2023. So assuming that is anybody on that list, any of them could easily well defeat an APC candidate. I can assure you that.
Let me show you this.
Yes.
Let's flip the page. These are the names, the early potentials that have come up. Some of them have not even said whether or not they want to run. Take a look at the APC list that we have for you. And perhaps Mr. Chidoka might be able to make a comment on them. So these are some of the names that have come up in the APC. Bola Tinubu, former governor of Lagos State, APC leader. Professor Yemi Osinbajo, VP, the vice president. Yahaya Bello, governor of Kogi State. Rochas Okorocha, former governor of Imo State, Rotimi Amechi, Minister for Transport and the former governor of Rivers State, Goswe Akpabio, former governor of Akwa Ibom State, and the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs. Does it look stellar to you also?
A fairly decent team. I'll say a fairly decent team.
Not as not stellar like the list on your side.
Not as stellar as the PDP team. But that's neither here nor there. What is important, and I think that that's the conversation of 2023. 2023 is an interesting year for Nigeria. It's a year that some conversations have to be had about Nigeria. And the reason why I say so is that in 2014, 2015, President Jonathan, let me rewind back. Many Nigerians will remember that Nigeria was at a very burning stage in 1994, 93, 94, when Abiola was in prison. And the country looked like it was going to collapse, the June 12 crisis. And General Abacha convened a national conference. At that national conference, the big boys from all the ethnic groups, minus the Southwest, came to that conference. So you had General Shehu Yaradua, we had Atiku Abubakar, we had Lex Ekweme, we had Ojukwu on the conference, we had all kinds of people from all the parts of Nigeria, Mamanga Tuko. And after the conference, one of the agreements they had was that there will be a rotation, north-south rotation in Nigeria in 1995. Professor ABC also reminded me this a few days ago because he conducted the conference called Okibo in Enugu in 1995, which I participated in, to distill the views of the delegates going from the south-east. Now, at that conference, we shook hands on the agreement that there will be north-south rotation. And when Abacha died, and we had another conference to review that document and then promulgated 99 Constitution, they removed the zoning. But the key elements of the 1995 Constitution persisted, which is the six-zonal structure. It didn't make it to the Constitution, but it became the norm for Nigeria and our distribution. But what has happened is that because of that agreement, it was easy for the rest of the country to say, this is the time for the Southwest to produce a president. And that was why President Obasanjo and Ekweme were the front runners in PDP. What is interesting about Vice President Ekweme's running at that time was that he was basically supported by key northerners, Alhaji Richiroma, Ali Baba and co. The MPN old war machine came to support Ekweme. Be that as it may, Obasanjo and Falaye were the two candidates. So the North and the Southeast, South-South, North Middle Belt voted for Obasanjo. The Southwest voted for Falaye, and the Northwest, some parts voted for Falaye Shinkafi because it was Shinkafi and Falaye. But that showed us that the country agreed, basically, that it was time to zone the presidency. 2003, President Obasanjo returned. In 2007, we had President Yaradua and President Buhari running against each other, two northerners. And then, of course, with President Goodluck, who came as vice president. So when Yaradua died, Goodluck now came in. Now, when Goodluck was to run in 2011, the North raised fundamental objection. They said President Goodluck was taking the northern turn. I remember very well, I was Corps Marshal at that time, when a meeting they had in the villa, General Obemudia begged the North that Jonathan was already president. This is an act of God. Let's allow him to do this, after which we will return power to the North. And the Northern delegates at that meeting grudgingly acquiesced, and that was how Jonathan became president in 2011. So there was an agreement by the PDP that it was yet the Northern turn, but because of necessity, so to speak, we allowed President Jonathan to continue. In 2015, the country said, no, Jonathan cannot go a second term because this is actually the turn of the North. So all said and done, President Buhari emerged. In 2019, because the PDP agreed that this was a northern turn to do 8 years, we all zoned the presidency to the north. So if you notice at Port Harcourt, all the 12 contestants for PDP tickets were northerners. And Vice President Atiku emerged as the candidate because there was an understanding that this is the time for the north. Now, in 2023, the country is now again to be confronted. Will northerners, after having benefited and agreed to this zoning structure, agreed to this consensus, now turn back to say zoning is undemocratic? Zoning is not to be accepted in Nigeria. People should canvass to win an election. Beautiful argument on the surface of it. But it appears to me to be some form of sophistry because the country had developed a consensus that is working. I do not see any reason why we should dismantle that consensus, that power goes north, it goes south. So the argument I have in 2023 is that the country will be asking itself the question, when are agreements in Nigeria? When do we settle a matter and said, this is settled national convention, that power goes north and south? And then the country is again confronted with a new question. If power is going to the south, which zone of the south needs to benefit from that? Some says it is a turn of the Igbos, but the Igbos are not playing national politics. Then my question is, when it was the turn of the Yorubas, they were not playing national politics, they were in AD. And PDP chose a Yoruba man that the country wanted to do business with. So it will be such an odd situation if the rest of the country doesn't find an Igbo man that is in sync with the Nigerian ideal, that can be trusted with keeping Nigeria going together. That in 1979, 9 years after the war, the northern political elites trusted Alex Ekwueme to be vice president 9 years after the war. And 50 years after the war, we're still debating whether the Igbo man is playing national politics or not. There must be some agreement, some consensus that certain Igbo people behave a minority amongst the Igbos, but are joined the majority in Nigeria to form government. And I think that's the key issue in 2023. It's not something people like to hear, but I think the country must confront its demons. I was there in 2011 when that agreement about Jonathan was made. I was there in 2015 when President Jonathan picked up his phone and called President Buhari, accepting that defeat and allowing the country to go on peace. And I want to be there in 2023 when Northern and Nigerian political elites say, this national convention is something we need to follow. Let's continue with it.
We take a short break, but when we come back, there are a few more issues I'd like to take up with you. Issues of the quality and the kind of president Nigeria needs in 2000, beyond the issue of zoning, and also the indirect and direct primaries and the electronic voting. Where do we go from here? We'll take a break, and when we come back, everyone, we'll talk more and get our closing moment with Mr. Osita Chidoka. I will also be speaking with Mr. Muiz Banere, a senior advocate of Nigeria and a former legal advisor of the APC. And our conversation will be on Nigeria and the way forward. That's after our conversation with Mr. Chidoka. Join us again, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, and welcome back to the conversation. I've been speaking with a former aviation minister and a chieftain of the PDP, Mr. Osita Chidoka. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Our closing moment with you now, I'd like to go into briefly. I mean, I'm tired of thinking and realizing that we have to leave the conversation around who leads this country to issue of ethnicity and religion. It sounds bizarre, it sounds weird, and it sounds not just right for me. It's maybe a personal feeling. I think we should have a conversation around the quality of the persons that we need to see in power. This is an enormously blessed nation that we cannot subject the leadership of this country to just ethnicity.
Well, it is, I call it sophistry when people tell me that we cannot subject the nation. This nation is a nation that has been built on consensus. It's the only nation in the world where people get to university because of where they come from. They get admission to university. It's the only country in the world where the federal government set cut-off marks, lower for one group and higher for another. Why are we suddenly changing the dynamics of our country? Our country is unique. It's the only country where you have minor ethnic groups and major ethnic groups aligned in a way that welded us together into a marriage. It's the only country that survived the civil war. And after the civil war, there were no victors, no vanquished. The country moved on. Our country is unique in its way. What we need now, where we are today, is that the country needs to find that quality of a Nigerian that we're looking for. And how to do it is that the whole idea of zoning is not supposed to be permanent. The Abacha conference brought it out well. He said single-term presidency, 5 years for each zone, and after the 30 years rotation, we will abolish zoning and allow anybody to run. So the country people have come with a sense of belonging to the Nigerian project. And that for me was a brilliant idea, because you have to build a nation first before you can begin to talk about all these other issues. If the people in, and I can tell you, It doesn't even matter whether a country is successful or not. The most successful part of Spain is the part that wants to exit from Spain. Quebec wants to exit from Canada, not because they are poorer, not because they have no infrastructure. It is that feeling of alienation, that feeling of not being brought together. I'll tell you a story. General Atahiru died as Chief of Army Staff, and General Ahanotu was the Chief of Army Plans and Operations. So with General Atahiru dead, they were classmates, they were best of friends. General Ahanotu grew up in the north. He even began to contact his father's family much later in his career. And then somebody said, oh, General Ahanotu will be appointed Chief of Army Staff. And they said, no, it's not possible. And I said, why? I said, oh, he's an Igbo man. He hurt me. He pained me. Not because they said he's an Igbo man. I'm saying, how can somebody who have sacrificed his life for a nation, signed up to give his life in the army, be told you cannot get a position because of where you come from? That was painful. I'm saying that what we need in Nigeria is to first get everybody to accept that Nigeria is a home for you all. Everybody can aspire and get to any part in Nigeria. That was the beauty of Nigeria, that you cannot be disenfranchised because of birth, because of your family, because of where you come from. Once we overcome that stage, I can assure you, Nigerians will vote for that person who they know will deliver on the job of president.
Because we need to close now the conversation with you and move to the next guest. The direct, indirect primaries, transmission of result electronically, how does that come to you?
It comes to me as progress. All we
and
need
you
to
as
do,
a politician, we have only one option of a direct primary.
Yes. If you want to win an election, I always have the feeling that because of the way we do our primaries, the candidates are not ready by the time they win the primaries. They are not known by the public because they have been busy canvassing within a small group of people. Now that you have to win within a broader large of people, the most popular candidates will emerge out of the parties. What is required is for the infrastructure of INEC to be made available to the parties. So in every ward, you can have maybe 5 voting points. Everybody come out and vote, bring your voter's ID card, your party card and your voter card. If it is accredited, then you vote. That way, we're going to have the whole of Nigeria participating. And that will also help to dealing with this issue of zoning. At the end of the day, the most popular candidate, the person that organizes most, the person that out-organizes everybody, wins that primaries. And when he wins the primaries, he already has the infrastructure for the general election. The people will already be easy for him to be sold. So I think that giving the direct primaries is going to be good for our democracy. Electronic transmission is a must for us to solve the problem of rigging. By the time you do 130,000 polling units submitting his result, it will be impossible to go to the 8,000 words collation point to start changing figures. So that in itself will promote transparency in elections. Mr.
Osita Chidoka, former aviation minister and a PDP chieftain, thank you so much indeed for coming today.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Let's switch gears now, everyone. The All Progressives Congress, APC, had its state congresses across the country. Many of the exercises was largely successful, while others concluded with factional and parallel congresses in several states like Osun, Lagos, Ogun, Abia, Kano, and some other states had some sort of divisions. But the party had responded to the outcome and the sort of controversies that emanated from the events of yesterday, some of which dovetailed to today. The party National Caretaker Secretary, Senator Akpan Uduedehe, says in a statement, quote, he says, the purported parallel congresses are futile activities and very strange to the party. Only exercises conducted by duly inaugurated state congress committees are recognized by the party, end of quote. That is the position of the APC on the parallel congresses. But what are the effects of implications of this sort of situation? Let's turn to a former legal advisor of the APC and a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Muiz Banire, who joins us from our Lagos studio. It's good to see you tonight, Mr. Banire, and thank you so much for coming on tonight on the program. Let me begin by asking you, parallel congresses in Ogun, there was a big drama there. In Kano, drama. In Kwara, drama. In Lagos, some drama also. What are the implications of this? This is a party you know too well. I can hear you now, Mr. Banira. Please go ahead. I can hear you now. If you can come very, very top so that we can hear you loud and clear now.
Thank you very much. I said the implication is simple. That's the fractionalization of the party all over. It started from the world congresses through the local government, the state, and it's not unexpected that even at the national convention, you are likely to have the same thing. If you recall vividly, some few months ago, I did predict that it will happen, and certainly the implosion, in my very strong view, is inevitable. And I think that at the end of the day, it's not unlikely that you find a situation where most of these people that are already outside or declared to be outside by the National Secretary of the Caretaker Committee will find their way elsewhere to another platform. And I think that will be the eventual consequence.
I mean, this is what the party is working to avoid. But it looks like it is happening. We had a faction loyal to Senator Abikunle Amosun. We had one loyal to the governor, Governor Abiodun. In Kwara State, a faction loyal to the minister, Lai Mohammed, a faction loyal to the governor. In Lagos State, we have some other groups who are holding their own. But how can they stop? Because this is going to be the last Congress before the National Convention. If you are predicting that there might be some kind of implosion, what can they do to resolve this?
Well, it seems to be belated. What I would have expected from inception that what you have preceded all these various congresses should have been reconciliation of the differences among the various factions, but unfortunately that failed. Having failed now, it seems that the situation has reached a point of no return. And my expectation is that at the end of the day, some people will be out. And those that are out, most likely, like I said, will find themselves in another platform. So there's nothing actually they can do at this stage. The alternative that they have is for some of them to interrogate the validity and the propriety of the congresses in court. That's the option that they have. Thank you.
But I thought that every of the Congress had an appeal process. What happened to this appeal process? Are they not working? Have they fallen flat on their faces?
Well, it's never worked. I think the structure they put in place this time around is not at all institutionalized. That's the problem. And the way they choke them up, there's no transparency. The whole thing is shrouded in secrecy. I watched some of the proceedings in some of the states, and I discovered that in some of the states, really people do not even know, some people don't even know the venue of congresses until the day. And what are the guidelines? What are the rules? Where is the electoral register, membership register? Where is the credibility in it? Where is the display? Where are the delegates? Who knows who and who are the delegates? So there are so many flaws in the entire process. For me, it will appear to be largely a sham.
Well, if you look at it, the party has set up a Senator Abdullahi Adamu Reconciliation Committee. You know Senator Abdullahi Adamu, former governor, a sitting senator. With his pedigree, do you think it can unite the party? There was a time the party set up a Senator Bola Tinubu Reconciliation Committee. From what you've seen in the past and the Senator Adamu Reconciliation Committee, do you think the party can resolve its differences? We seem to be having some issues there. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, our conversation with Mr. Muiz Banire continues. Join us again, everyone. Everyone, let's continue our conversation with Mr. Muiz Banire, a former national legal advisor of the APC and a senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Mr. Banire. That question that I asked you, your response was not quite heard by the guest. I'm asking the Senator Adamu-led Reconciliation Committee, do you see it being able to resolve these problems?
Well, I do not. I'm personally pessimistic about the capacity or the potential of the committee of the body resolving the conflict now. Is the situation of APC right now, as far as I'm concerned, is a situation where it's the cart that is drawing the horse and not the other way around again. So it's already too late in the day to start embarking on any serious reconciliation again. I do not see it happening at all. We've had it before. The way of Chief Akonde earlier, the former chairman and the head of the Reconciliation Committee. Nothing contrary really came out of it, as I predicted. So in the same light, I do not see anything positive coming out of this exercise. Thank you.
Let me show you this. There's been this contestation about, and there's a lot of talk about it. And your friend, Senator Bola Tinubu's name is on it. Let me show you the list of those whose name have come up in the APC as possibility of those who will become the candidate of the APC. Bola Tinubu, Yemi Oshibajo, the VP, Yaya Bello, governor of Kogi State, Rochas Okorocha, former governor of Imo, Rotimi Amechi, former governor of Rivers, and former governor of Akwa Ibom, Godswill Akpabio. First and foremost, let me get your view. Are you one of those who think that someone like Bola Tinubu is perhaps the best candidate that Nigeria needs for president?
I didn't get that. One of the best or the best candidate. Which one have you said?
Yeah, I mean, for those who are supporting him, those who created the slogan, swagger, and the campaign for Bola Tinubu, they feel that he is the best candidate that Nigeria needs to be president. Do you think so?
Oh, of course, that is their own opinion too. All the people that you have shown there now, all of them have their ambition in the first instance is legitimate. And I know that a lot of them there, at least about 4 of them, I can tell you for free, have strong profile that is capable of midwifing the positive transition of the country into the expectation of the majority of Nigerians. So that is, I believe, that's my own view. Undoubtedly, I can tell you for free that he's qualified to run, but as far as I'm concerned, practically every other person on that list is qualified and competent to run equally.
Beyond qualification, what do you make of Bola Tinubu's pedigree in becoming Nigeria's president? Do you think you worked with him? You were a commissioner in his government.
Well, my view of it is that if you look at it from the perspective of governance, like you said earlier about the other party, when the analysis was being done, of course, in terms of governance issues, which is the issue at core, of course, he's competent.
But would you, I mean, in all of the candidates or in all of the names that we put forward on the screen today, if you had to pick one out of them, who would you go for?
Well, maybe the way I'm looking at those, the list is inacceptable, and I'm not too sure that you have it exhaustive in the manner that my preference, you have not listed. You seem not to have listed it.
And who would that be?
Most likely to be me.
Who would that be?
Myself.
Oh, you are not. No, it's good that you have told us now that you might be in the running for the #1 seat in the country. That's good. Under what platform? Is it going to be the APC or what party?
Certainly it's not PDP and it will not be APC. Certainly, that much I can tell you.
So you will be running for president in 2023?
Well, what I can tell you is not to rule it out. It's a possibility. It's very strong probability, sir.
Oh, interesting. That's news. Let me ask you, the National Assembly is working on amending the Electoral Act. And now they're saying that they will go and ensure that direct primaries will be the only mode of primaries. Do you agree with that?
Direct mode? Well, I do not...
Of primaries?
Yes, honestly speaking, I do not see anything wrong with it, except that all the prerequisites that are essential for the successful assumption of direct primary, they are still absent in the system. So I do not see it working in the direction that they are thinking of. In other words, as of today, in virtually all the political parties, I'm yet to see a credible membership register. Are they going to mandate them to display those registers so that people can raise objection before the actual use of it? What kind of identity are they going to use for the purpose of identifying those people? Where are the venue? Where are the logistics? It comes with a lot of logistics. Except those things are in place, it will be a futile exercise. So I expect that before directing or mandating direct primary, those issues ought to have been settled. And they cannot be settled except you also involve the INEC, that is Independent National Electoral Commission. For example, they are supposed to be the monitors of the primary. But in a lot of instances, I've not seen them really do the job well. That must happen. The register itself must be verified, authenticated. The identity of those on the register must be known to all aspirants. And a situation where, for example, some few days ago, I was watching the Lagos experiment. Some people wanted to get into the venue and they said, we don't know you. Whereas they haven't seen. I recall vividly for example, writing about a week ago to say he wants to see the list of delegates. If you don't have the list of those who are to participate, there's no way that you can actually get this experiment on. So for me, I have no objection to it, but I do not see it succeeding except those prerequisites are put in place.
It's interesting. Another aspect of it is the electronic transmission of result and the possibility of electronic voting. Are we ripe for electronic voting, first and foremost?
Well, of course, maybe you've forgotten, I was one of the first set of people that opposed the National Assembly on the rejection of the electronic transmission. It's a good development. It's the people's will that eventually has prevailed. Left to these people at the National Assembly, they throw us back again. So, and I want to thank INEC in this regard. They are progressive in their thoughts equally. So I'm fully in support of electronic transmission, hoping that in due course also, that will be able to graduate into electronic voting.
Interesting. Let's wrap up the conversation tonight with you. Since you are thinking of becoming Nigeria's president, let me ask you, because the solution that we're looking for, what do you think is the solution to the myriads of problems that this nation is facing? If you were made Nigeria president or elected as Nigeria's president, what would you do within the very first week of assuming office?
Well, the very first thing I would do is to address the various issues that have been raised by the various agitators. We have agitators all over the country today. Even the bandits themselves, the so-called Boko Haram and people, the people tag terrorists today, the IPOP people, the Southwest Igbo people, all the, in one way or the other, if you listen well, you will find that they all have their various points. This I will first and foremost want to address. For me, I believe we must certainly have a conversation around the various issues that they have identified. Except those conversations take place, we will continue to have a situation where we do not truly have Nigerians in our nation again. We will continue to have people of different regions, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, and so on and so forth. That's what you find out having at the end of the day. So for me, there is no sense of nationalism in the nation right now, and the only way we can make that happen is to, of course, engage the various ethnic nationalities and let us see their grievances. Let's put it on the table, and then let's negotiate it effectively. Some people call it restructuring. Well, it may well be, but it must happen. It's a conversation that is inevitable if this country must move forward. Otherwise, we continue to be where we are now, which is not enviable at all.
Is it going to be like a national conference for you to engage them? Or how exactly would you go about it?
Well, I would prefer that kind of, any form of national dialogue, any form. It can be a conference, it can be representative, like whichever way. One thing I know is that there must be conversation around all the issues the agitators have brought up. Except we do that, we will continue to threaten our own sovereignty internally.
Mr. Muiz Banira, it's always a pleasure listening to you, and we'll be looking forward to you officially declaring. You probably had done that tonight in wanting to become the Nigeria's president. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. Senior Advocate of Nigeria and former legal advisor of the APC, Mr. Muiz Banira. It's on that note that we say thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I'm Sean Wakimale. Have a pleasant evening.